Good day, everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of Unleash with FTEM, Unleash with From the Expert's Mouth. And today we have a double bonanza because we have two guests instead of one, and we bring to you Tarun Kodnani and Varun Kodnani, both being co-founders of Flowace. So Tarun and Varun, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having us.
Hi, everyone. Thank you.
So we spoke about the fact that we have a double bonanza, but that's not all. In fact, we have a triple bonanza because we intend to cover three things with Tarun and Varun. Firstly, about their entrepreneurship journey, because they've done, as you would have guessed it by now, three startups together. So being serial entrepreneurs, we'll speak about their entrepreneurship journey. We'll speak about the space that they are in. And last but not the least, we'll also speak about what it means to be founding companies and working alongside siblings and with the family, because there are separate dynamics to that, which I'm sure will get uncovered as a part of this conversation. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. So before we get started, Tarun and Varun, let's have your introductions and a brief background about your journey and what you've been up to so far before we get into what you've been doing with Flowace.
So I can start off with my journey. So I did my undergrad in computer science from University of Warwick. Right after Warwick, I came back, wanted to do something on my own. So that's where Tarun and I both, so Tarun is 2 years elder to me. He did his studies from UCL. And when he was back, he started working on this startup called Cabzo, which was a taxi booking app competing to Ola and Uber at that point. And we catered to the black and yellow cabs. And we were doing quite well at that point. We had around 1,500 to 2,000 cabs flying with us. So that was a good achievement for us. We were even scaling operations to other cities from Mumbai. But that's where we faced some regulatory concerns in terms of the government getting involved. And, we had some issues, and obviously Uber and Ola had deep pockets. So it was a tough battle to compete against them. And Uber, Ola both started catering to Kali Pili or black and yellow cabs as well. So at that point, we started realizing that this was a tough space to be in. And we wanted to leverage the technology that we built to go to countries where they didn't have this technology of ride hail or ride cabs and stuff. So we contacted our friends from Romania, from Africa, and so on. And that's when we started consulting with a lot of lawyers, analysts, consultants, and etc. That's when we realized that the time management was a huge problem in their space. So when we received huge bills from their side after a lot of consultations, that's when we realized that how can one small email that you write, can that take 15 minutes? So that's when we had this conversation. We started realizing that this space definitely needs automation. And that's when we built something, a very small prototype for Outlook, in fact, for the lawyers. And the lawyer that we interacted with, he really flipped when he saw the solution. He's like, wow, this would really save me a lot of time and effort, would really give me a lot of benefits on the revenue leakages that we have. So that's where we started our Flowace journey. And I can let Tarun cover the rest of it or highlight some other points that come to his head.
Sure. So I'll touch upon one point, that the transition between Cabzo and Flowace, we actually set up another bootstrap sort of software development company. We were taking on orders from people to keep us alive. We worked with clients like Angel Broking, Style Cracker, and so on. And while we were wanting to jump at another product, we were a little more skeptical because we were coming out of a failure. That's where I think Varun and me hesitated this time before we started Flowace. And that was our sort of stint at doing everything. Whatever came our way, we didn't know what was right, what was wrong. We were just taking on any software order that came through, while in the evening hours thinking how to make this product better, because we still didn't know that it was the thing to focus on. This was a gap of a year in the middle and a transition period, after which we are all in on Flowace. And then I think Varun has shared the journey before and after. So I just thought I'll add a little bit over there.
But yeah, taking a step back to the beginning of your entrepreneurial journey, it's quite astounding that your first venture itself, you were head on with Ola and Uber, and that's like big challenge to take. How did you guys approach it? What was your thought process? Did you realize the enormity of the challenge that you were, facing or getting into while taking on Ola and Uber, who are, giants in all senses of the word? Or was it just excitement that, let's just do something and this seems to be an interesting space because the market is big and you only realized what you got into after some point in time?
Yeah, you're right that there was a certain bit of being naive as entrepreneurs at that point. We did try to take on Ola. Also, Ola wasn't so big at that point. They had raised their first sort of massive round, which is $25 million. And then after that, I think somewhere around $100 million in 6 months. So within 6 months, they raised like 2 very big rounds. And they weren't catering to the black and yellow space, the black and yellow cab space. They were just catering to the T permit vehicles. And that's where we thought that there was a gap. We could cater to the black and yellow cabs because the black and yellow cabs were upset with companies like Ola and Uber because they were giving preference to the T permit vehicles. So we were on that side of the coin where we felt that we could cater to them. But little did we know that since Ola and Uber raised a lot of money in the time that we were there, and they started incentivizing lots of drivers to not take up journeys from other cabs. That's where we realized that it's definitely a very uphill task to be able to compete with them because they're very established. They're out there and they're growing by the second. So that's where both of us felt that learning wise, yes, to other fellow entrepreneurs, I would say that to study the landscape, study the kind of tasks that you're dealing with, the ginormous task of competing against someone like an Ola and Uber who's already established is definitely an uphill task. And unless you have something very, very unique in nature, which they can't do, it'll be a tough one. So yeah, that's one lesson that we learned, and we would definitely advise to find a gap where there are lesser number of players or lesser number of established people out there.
There are a couple of parts, right? Naive is the first part, which Varun spotted very correctly. Also, second, in our sort of basic defense is that Ola wasn't as big as it has become today. So at least we felt that we had the eye of spotting something sooner than the others. So we learned from that in a positive way that we also casually discussed that it would have been much more profitable just putting vehicles in Ola at that point in time,
right?
Rather than thinking of a startup. You would have probably made a lot more money because many drivers actually ended up making like 10, 12, 15 vehicles at that point in time. It's a funny story that you have to accept failure, but learn from it. That's all you can do.
Yeah,
right.
And very recently we came across this app, Tarun, you can share some light about it. Who's built the app on blockchain right now, or cab hailing, because in Bangalore they're facing severe issues in terms of getting cabs. When we went to Bangalore as well, we were not getting cabs. Every time it's waiting because they take a huge commission nowadays because they want to prove profitability. Cab drivers are not happy with them, clearly. So there's this company, Tarun, you can share more light on it.
I mean, right. The thing is, the problem is still being solved. Honestly speaking, if you ask me objectively, that's where there are new companies always trying. But I still feel that space is very capital intensive. And another tip or guidance, observe gaps as Varun mentioned. And the other thing, observe that if there's not too much capital intensive requirements in the industry. We should have been a little more clear that Uber had to raise so much money to make an impact in the US. Clearly, even if there has to be some company in India, there's going to be a lot of capital investment, right? And that should be a red flag, I feel. Not because it's not good to chase those dreams. It's just good to chase them a little earlier than someone has raised money. When we were around, we knew there was Ola around, right? So that was a mistake on our part, objectively speaking. We've learned. Now we don't do those type of mistakes if we think of something.
Yeah, and there are ways to get around, the capital intensive nature. You can create innovative business models. You can create asset light models. You can have, collabs and the works. But I think the good thing is that being a serial entrepreneur or having done it multiple times, the best thing is if you're able to realize from your experiences, giving it labels like failure or naivety sometimes colors the whole argument. I think the best way to look at it is, okay, this was my experience and this is what I learned from it. And this is fascinating because, I'm sure a lot of listeners and viewers who are watching this will be able to vicariously learn from your experiences. And, that's the plank of our platform and what we're trying to do. So then you got into the service, segment. Essentially, you were in IT services. And then again, you switched back to the product space with Flowace. So let's talk a little bit about this space and what are the challenges you were trying to solve. What was exactly the problem that you were trying to solve and how did you go about doing it?
So definitely we started off by looking at the problem of time tracking being a huge problem. It's a manual process, a tedious one. No one likes to do it.
I was just going to add some more like technical challenges that we are facing, right? Because that is also another sort of area which you could understand and some people may relate to as well. So one of the things that is important is ideal customer profile. Why is that really important is because from a technical perspective, if you like, for us as Flowace, the challenge is we're applicable to every industry because time is applicable to each and every industry. Now for us as a team of 20-25 people, it's very challenging to please every industry overnight. So that's one technical challenge that we keep facing. It's called the noisy neighbor problem, where one person is happy but the other person is not happy, even though we know how to make him happy, but we don't have the bandwidth to make them happy today.
Right.
So that's why I said the ideal customer profile becomes a very important challenge to solve and see where you're getting more revenue from, because then only the other dreams will start getting fulfilled. Like when we talk to everyone appreciates it, whether it's HR industry, IT industry, lawyers, accountants, even salespeople. So the interest is there in terms of what it is, but the depth of solving it requires a lot of technical understanding of the entire problem as well, which is the challenge we are at present discovering. Like every day we're getting better at it. And I think identifying the customer profile is becoming much better than a year ago, for example. But everyone says that this is not some magical wand or you can move it around and get the answer. It's, as Varun mentioned, overwork or underwork is bad. Consistently chasing this problem of ideal customer profile is something that we are currently in, and hopefully we'll conquer this in our next interview whenever we give it.
Now coming to Flowace itself as an organization, and back to the entrepreneurship track that we spoke about, and now you've taken it to a certain level. Can you talk us through what the journey has been of building Flowace and now of scaling up? So what are some of the challenges? Tarun mentioned earlier about choosing the right sort of customer and targeting the right customer. So what has been that journey, and how do you foresee that panning out in the future?
Yeah, so I can just share challenges that are coming to my mind, right? Customers are the best thing that you have to chase. Any business actually thinks innovation, they forget about the customer. You have to think of your customer first and then think about innovation. Varun and me were also we really got inspired by tech in our early days. We did not think of, like in Cabzo times, driver and passenger. These are two real stakeholders that we have to always think about, not about ourselves. We kept thinking about ourselves, which is why we felt that how to perfect it from a room. That's a mistake that I feel, or a learning that we've got, that build something quickly and put it out there. Let the real customer talk. Let the real person tell you whatever he or she wants to say. Good, bad, ugly is all fine. But don't just keep speculating so much and thinking within that, is this perfect? Have I got it right? Have I got it wrong? At least that is how I feel that is one learning / one change in ourselves that we've brought about. And this was a challenge, right? This is actually a challenge because sometimes you feel that, am I putting it out there in the open too soon? Will I be criticized for it? Will I be not appreciated for my work? So running away from that fear is not solving it. Facing and experiencing it is really solving it. So I would say face whatever challenge comes your way. That's number one. So put your prototypes out there very soon or very quickly. The other challenge that Flowace really faces on a daily basis is we find our people less. We feel that more people would help us solve faster and so on. But I think what we're missing the point over there sometimes is that just adding more people does not make magic happen. You need to be wise enough, and that's another thing that today's startups are experiencing, right? People who just grow in a very fast manner, thinking that, okay, if I hire so many people, I'll grow this fast and I'll achieve this kind of success. That's actually not true, because then they have to downsize as well. They have to hurt some people as well. So the real objective that Varun and me feel that you have to grow is the minute you're steady, the minute you're sustainable. So we always chase sustainability. Another challenge that's coming is a technical challenge, which I mentioned, right? Enterprise customers' expectations are very different from a cloud-based customer. Enterprise customer wants everything on premise, everything within their infrastructure, everything that has to be literally in their environment. Nothing can be on the cloud, and this is more in Indian enterprises, everyone says, because they are skeptical still a little about cloud. and security and so on. And the cloud customers obviously happy with cloud related services. So one challenge as engineers or as product developers we are facing is that sometimes even to please these two types of customers, even in the same industry, can be challenging. So starting to get a little clearer about your size of the customer that you want also is an important metrics in terms of understanding your ideal customer profile.
Right.
If you know that, okay, I need to target only 100 to 500 member firms, they don't want any enterprise setup. They don't want anything. They'll be happy with cloud. Those you'll grow faster. That being said, Varun and me keep hedging our bets also, because you don't want to be all in on just one area that suddenly you start losing something and you don't have the enterprise to follow up on, or the enterprise to help you out at that dire state. Because enterprise gives you that name, gives you that recognition, gives you that next customer automatically. So it's balancing is a challenge. Like
Right.
as a founder, I would say balancing all your departments or all your compartments is a challenge, because everything can't be perfect every day. You pick up one department one day, you'll have to pick up the other department the other day.
As we mentioned earlier, speaking about working along with siblings, and as we've seen right through this discussion, you guys have been, completing each other's sentences and thought processes. That part is obvious, how much of a synergy that is probably there, that I'm sure the Flowace team sees on a daily basis. But as a general principle, for people who are maybe members of the same family, siblings, couples, whatever, what are the pros and what are the cons of starting a business within the family?
So one thing I would like to highlight over here definitely is that when you're working with family, you need to ensure that honesty is there in terms of, because sometimes what happens is to please family members, and that happens when you're showing your product also to your other family members. Mostly, at least we come from a family where everyone encourages. They don't give a lot of critical feedback. They'll say, "Oh wow, this is brilliant. This is world's best product," and so on. And
Right.
that's what Tarun and I have learned this one thing, that please don't show it to family, show it to the external world, and take their real feedback. Because if you don't take their real feedback, then you don't know where your product stands. And this happened with us in Capzo. When we showed the app to everyone in our family, everyone was like, "Wow, kudos! This is, you guys have built the first app in our family, and you guys are doing such a great job." And that's where we realized, when we got a first 1-star feedback, we realized, oh wow, okay, this is not in the bubble that we were living in. The actual product needs improvement. So one thing that I would advise is that being family members is great. So yes, we do cut off. We have a work time, and then we do have a personal time as well. So when you're in your work time, we're absolutely honest to each other in terms of what we're doing, in terms of the product, how we're growing, how we're improving, what needs improvement. So being honest is one very important thing, I would say, is something. And then yeah, being able to cut off also. Once you're done with the work, then you do realize that your family members, you don't want to talk about work after a point. That's like adding that work life balance, because you're living in the same houses as well, right? You're seeing the same person's
Yeah.
face throughout the day, at work as well, at homes as well, when you're watching a movie, etc. So it's natural at times that you might get some thought or some question. So it does take a lot of, let's say, effort to not get into that. If you're eager to ask one question to the other co-founder, saying that, okay, this is something that's come into my head at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock in the night, you're taking a break, but then it may not be fair to the other person, because the other person is just mentally cut off. He said that now it's
Right.
just my break time, I don't want to think about work. So depends. We are respectful to each other also, to ask that, are you in the state to talk about this right now? So if the other person is in the state, then great, both of us are in the state to talk about that. But if one of them is also not in the state, is probably like relaxing or doing something else, then respect the other person, and take that up as the next thing in the morning. First thing in the morning, you can ask that question. So we're that we will maintain that kind of an equation.
I literally agree with whatever Varun said, right? And the con or the thin line is if both of us sort of let's say one is ready to talk and one is not ready to talk. And that is where we've learned now, knowing each other for so many years, right? Because when you spend time as kids, as children as well, so you realize that this is not the right time to talk about these things. So
Right.
knowing when to talk is obviously important, because the workday is there and be honest, etc. is there. But in your family time, it's good to not talk many a times, however eager we are, because then you're enjoying something, you're doing something. Otherwise, you're never resting or never giving your mind a little break. So,
Right.
so that's one thing that we both had to practice. It doesn't come naturally,
Yeah.
because sometimes everyone feels you have a eureka moment. that this is what will change the world, or this idea will bring 1,000 more users. So it happens to both of us still, right? I mean, and that's a learning that we've got, that it's okay. It can wait till tomorrow. It can wait till the morning, or it can wait till the other person is ready to hear it. So that's a good learning.
Yeah.
The other pro which is there is you have a support system within the house as well as in your work, right? So honesty comes very naturally. It's not so tough for us, touchwood, because you've been honest all your life as brothers, right? When you're two stranger founders, etc., this honesty principle becomes very complex. Also, could be complex because you're meeting for the first time. Some people may not have different levels in honesty as well. So that's a natural we take for granted, which we shouldn't. But yes, it's a true asset to have. Also, one of the other things that we've started doing, which really helps as founders, also as brothers, also, is creating a segregation of work as well. Uh, how much ever people say that this is good or bad, needed or not needed, both of us have come to consensus that it's actually very important. Whether you're good or bad at it comes second. Just the responsibility aspect of it makes your business grow faster. So we know very clearly, like for example, for us, Varun knows very clearly that his involvement is still he gets the customer to a trial stage or a implementation stage. For me, it's very clear that I will get started only when the implementation channel begins. Now, this kind of discussion, this kind of honesty is only going to help your company, because now every day I think of how to retain a customer, how to give them the best service. Every day Varun thinks of how to get more customers, how can we grow our more customers from whatever we are. Now, if one has to do both these things, it can be overwhelming. It can be daunting as a task as well. So it's very important that this type of thought process is there, and both days are different. Trust me, like how to retain is very different from how to grow. Yes, there may be that intersection point, which is what we say that use one customer's experience and get more customers, getting ratings, getting reviews. So we've structured those areas as well. So it's very important that even though we love each other a lot, we are we really enjoy spending time a lot together, but it's better to just have that kind of structure in place as well, because it just helps the business. Otherwise, what will end up happening is, if you have too many overlaps, you will not be able to arrive at conclusions, which delays your company's growth. The idea may be great, but then your execution is becoming faulty, right?
Right. No, absolutely. And is this something that you learned along the way, or have you been doing this from day one in terms of segregation of responsibilities?
We did learn it along the way.
Okay.
It's not something that we started with. We initially, obviously, both of us, we even took on our, like, let's say if Tarun and Varun are there, people find it a little hard to distinguish between us also at times. So I could take his meetings, he could take my meetings. So there were times that in the initial days we did that. So there was a time when we did both, like both those responsibilities. There was not a clear divide between what we were doing. But then we realized that it's more efficient if one is taking on one sort of responsibilities and the others taking the other set of responsibilities, because you get better at doing that as well. The more you do that same activity, the deeper you can get, and do one thing but do it perfectly, kind of a thing. So that's where we made that conscious call of doing that, and we're obviously there around for each other to as a soundboard. So let's say Tarun needs some help and he's probably stuck with something, he can always come to me and use me as a soundboard. I'll hear him out, and then I'll give my inputs, but then I'll obviously say that it's up to you. I leave this up to you. It's I can just give you my suggestions. And same way, like let's say when it's about getting new customers in, he can be a soundboard to me, and I can tell him that this is where I'm struggling with, and he can tell me, okay, this is what my thoughts are. But obviously, then free to feel, he could give me some resources as well to look at, and that's how we can help each other out.
Right.
And the best part of this, right, is that there are going to be struggles in both areas. It's not like both are going to just magically grow or again become big. So having another perspective is so amazing, actually, because it helps you now think in a different way sometimes. And then you require that different thinking all the time as a startup. Like that is without a doubt that, like Varun was only telling me, he read a book which tells that you need to do 10 experiments odd a day as a founder.
Hard Things About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz. That
Yes.
book is really a great book, and he says that as an entrepreneur, you need to take 10 new initiatives every single day.
Yeah.
If you
Right.
don't do that, then you're not doing justice to your entrepreneurship journey. So that's what we try to follow. We try to take 10 new initiatives every single day, and yeah, that's something. And one more principle that I would like to highlight is something that Tarun and I have come up with. This is our own principle, where we have felt that whether it's a new customer that I have brought in, or whether it's a customer that Tarun has been able to retain very well, at the end of the day, we feel that credit is shared and so is the blame.
Mhm.
So we don't pinpoint at anyone's, let's say if I made a mistake, he won't come and pinpoint and say that. We learn from that mistake together, but we always share the credit. We'll always celebrate together. We'll always share the blame if there's something that's happened. We've lost a customer probably. We'll share that blame together. So we won't pinpoint, and that's one thing that you need to ensure. So if family members are working together, that could lead to negativity in your professional life as well and in your personal life as well.
Right.
So that's one thing that we all need to keep in mind, that if you're working with a partner or a brother or any family member, a sister, you need to keep that thing in check, that credit and blame both need to be shared at the end of the day. So you
Right.
can't pinpoint one person and say that this is why we failed. It's because of you that we failed. It's because of me that that we all succeeded. That's not something that we definitely encourage.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and absolutely. And I think the other thing also, since we're speaking about family and business people being together, uh, I think there's also a distinction that one needs to draw, or a dissociation of the person from being a family member to being a co-founder or a colleague, on the business side. Because
Correct.
especially, if you're working from home and the whole day you're seeing the other person in front of you, how do you switch from, say, at a magical time, say 7 p.m. or 6 p.m., that, now you move from the office colleague avatar to my, family member avatar? I think
Yeah.
that would probably come with a lot of practice and deliberate thinking, I would imagine.
So it is true. I mean, 100% everyone has to take 2-3 steps in a direction to reach a common goal, right? There are some things which we have been naturally gifted with, we feel, because our engineering is similar, our thought process is quite similar. So we've been naturally gifted also in some areas. Some areas where we're not
our,
naturally.
our interests are also similar. So we like watching football together, we like watching cricket, we like watching tennis, we like playing football together. So that's where Tarun is right, that naturally we have that, we both cut off at the same time probably. We
Yeah,
just come out of our rooms at 7 o'clock or 7:30 or 8, and then we probably have a football game to go to, or we have a movie to watch, or we straight away go to dinner at 8 o'clock. And that's where we know that now both of us need not say anything to the other, but we know that, okay, now this is how the day has been and work is ended.
Right.
and the other thing is that like, even if it's some places not so natural, right, because that is also possible, uh, we only use that as an advantage, right? Because you have another perspective on the table. If you're thinking, potentially someone else also around the world could be thinking that way. So there is no real right and wrong thought process, right? I mean, you have to just be creative about things, and experiments only increase, or your number of experiments only increase with another perspective. So there
Right.
are days when he will hear my perspective, which is different from what he has, but then obviously he just uses that as an experiment, right? Like, that's one of his 9 or 10 experiments that he has to do in the day. So it is
Right.
similarly when I'm struggling with something, that perspective, even if it's different, is just another format of an experiment that you get to. And sometimes people think it's easy to come up with experiments, but genuine 10 experiments are also very hard to come up with.
Right.
Uh, like, for the first
Yeah.
few days or first few years, also I could not come up with 3 or 4 experiments. So over there, I
And
used to really sort of work hard to increase your perspective or talk to a lot more people,
Right.
get more thought process.
Yeah.
yeah, and one thing that we try to do, obviously it's hard to do, it's easier said than done. We're obviously not perfect, we have so much of scope for improvement. But one thing that, let's say if I suggested some experiment, it's natural that I feel that this experiment will be successful. But that's where we try to make a conscious attempt to say that, okay, I suggested this experiment, but I don't know the answers for it. Let's hear from the market. whether
Right.
this is actually something that succeeded or not succeeded. Let's not make conclusions ourselves. Let's hear it from the market. Let's be fully objective. So let's say if Tarun has suggested something, I'll tell him that let's run this experiment. Let's see what the market says. Let's let the market decide whether it's like how the public decides whether it's a success or a failure.
Right.
So not being attached to just because this is your point or this is your experiment that you've said. So taking the credit again, that comes in that thin line. So we try to say that the results are not determined. Let the market determine the results.
I'm sure, since we've been speaking about 10 things to experiment or 10 things to do differently, there's a lot of fodder that you guys have given to our audience. And I'm sure, if they go back and replay the video, they'll find 10 things to do differently. And if not, just
Hopefully.
to, yeah, I'm sure. And, if not, let's supplement that list of 10 things with, a few pieces of advice from you guys on number one, what should serial entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs do or take away from your experience? And number two, because you are in the product space and you've done multiple ventures in the product space itself, and it has gained a lot of traction, particularly in the country, moving from software services to software products or any other product for that matter. What are some of the things that you should really take care of when building world-class products?
So I could go ahead first, Arun, and then you can share your. So my advice would be first study the market very closely, and rather than opting for surface, try solving a small problem in depth. So
Right.
try going as deep as possible in a small problem. One small problem solved. One simple example that I can give you is Grammarly. Grammarly is obviously everyone knows about Grammarly. One small problem that they solved, they plugged in everywhere in every platform or product out there. They did the plug and play model. So they solved this one problem of grammar, which probably seems like a small thing for many people, saying that they just solved the grammar problem. But actually, they went in a lot of depth in
Right.
solving that. So that's where I would suggest that study the market well, and take a landscape that has a lot of gaps, probably where you could come in and you could solve those gaps. The second thing would be Tarun has already highlighted that before, go to market as soon as possible with the prototype. There's nothing like a perfect product. No product is a perfect product. Even someone like Steve Jobs said that there is no one perfect out there. Everyone has scope for improvement at every given point in time. So go to market fast, fail fast, as fast
Right.
as possible, so that you know that you need to. So it's like every failure is a step towards success. So you fail quickly, you be objective about what you failed, and then you build on that, fail again, build on that. Every time that you fail, you're succeeding, you're moving one step closer to your goal. So fail fast and fail quickly is my advice to all fellow entrepreneurs. And yeah, perfection is something that can't is not something that it can be measured. There'll always be scope for improvement. So don't keep
Right.
thinking about whether I'm making the perfect product or no. I need more time. I need to do this. I need to do that. So yeah, go with your MVP as quickly as possible and try doing experiments, as we said. So Tarun can suggest some other learnings from his side.
The other thing that is we've been speaking a lot about in our conversation today is focus, right? So try to figure out a problem which uh, helps you focus on solving it,
Right.
because it's easier said than done. Finding the right problem, we got it. I mean, we felt we got the right problem at the first startup that we started, but again, that's not true. Finding a genuine problem which has not been solved is very difficult to do. It's not so simple in today's world, right? You Google something, you'll see some 10 companies are trying to solve something that you're thinking.
Right.
So finding something genuinely painful is tough. Be patient and talk to the right stakeholders before you decide whether this is worthwhile or no. Don't
Right.
let that stakeholder be, as Varun and me have mentioned, right? That stakeholder isn't sitting in your house. That
Right.
stakeholder isn't sitting in your building. The stakeholder isn't sitting in your town or your maybe in your city also sometimes.
Right.
So you go outside your comfort zone before you take a final call whether this is worthwhile or not. And all the other entrepreneurs, another sort of small tip of guidance or small tip of advice is, don't be that person who says, अरे मैंने ये सोचा था but मैं कर नहीं पाया, किसी और ने कर दिया.
Right.
So be that person who thinks and then actually executes on it, because
So
it's very easy to comment on failure. It's very easy to comment on when someone does not achieve something, right? It's super easy.
Right.
do those things. But it's far more challenging to think of a problem, put in that extra effort to solve it, and be focused in solving it. Even if you just do these 3-4 things,
Right.
And I think valuation, revenue, all those other things, you'll have people believing in you.
Right.
You'll find people. They'll find you rather. Sometimes it's not you chasing them. Also, they will start finding you if you do the right things.
Right.
And
Yeah, Varun.
carrying forward, I would say one word which has been used a lot by everyone out there, which is something, but it's very true. You have to do it as an entrepreneur is hustle.
Yeah.
Hustle, hustle, hustle. That has to be done. We love the LinkedIn founder's quote of how he says that an entrepreneur is someone who jumps off the cliff and builds an aeroplane on the way down.
Right.
So that's where the hustle comes in. You have to hustle because today you're nobody. No one recognizes your brand. No one knows. Tomorrow we were speaking to one of the MDs of the Accenture. He's a very senior member, and he was telling us one thing that whatever I say, people take me seriously because I'm coming from Accenture, because I'm the MD of Accenture. So being that position or being that person, everyone listens to me. But when you're building a new company, you don't have that brand, you don't have that recognition. So you need to hustle. You need to, if you don't have the solution built, understand from the requirements, understand from the client. Try spending 24/7. Try building that solution quickly and showing the prototype as soon as possible, because once you've figured that this is what the client wants, you need to be able to deliver that as well. So obviously coming to a good consensus about, okay, this is what the market needs. Once you know that, you have to build it as quickly as possible before someone else does.
Right.
So I think hustling is very important when you're out there. So the first step is to go out there as much as possible, like how Tarun said, meet the right stakeholders, meet people, go outside your comfort zone. But the next step is to hustle. There will be
Right.
times when you don't have the solution built, but you'll have to wing it in a way where you say that, okay, sir, I'll build it as soon as possible. Just give me a couple of days. It'll happen. It's already almost there.
Right.
So that's the attitude that you will need to have as an entrepreneur. That's what we feel.
So I know this, right? Varun has this hustle word very close to his heart, and he puts it on his sleeve because that is what is required. Without that, you're living in a world where no one is going to come and give you business.
Right.
You're not going to get business, and someone will say, "Chalo, take this order and take this business." If you have hustle, that means you have the grit to saying or making things that you say true, which means sometimes working on the weekends, which sometimes means leaving things halfway that you were supposed to do and finishing it off because you've hustled and got that opportunity, right? So that hustle is incomplete without it being so. Hustle's actual definition is you have to fulfill it.
Right.
If you're not able to fulfill your hustle, that's the slight difference between someone making it happen and someone really not making it happen.
And you may fail on the journey sometimes, but you
Yeah,
have to keep your hustle attitude going on.
yeah,
You
yeah.
may fail. You will not get it right all the time. You may say something, your team may not be able to deliver it. You may not be able to deliver it. But that does not mean you start becoming conservative and stop hustling.
Right.
Because hustle is what will get you. You may lose, there may be trade-offs. You may lose a few customers. There may be some circumstances that you face, but you need to ensure that you keep the hustling going, because ultimately that's what will make you reach a stage where people do recognize your brand.
Right. Yeah,
Becomes
and if you want to know if your hustling is efficient or not, then obviously you guys have an advantage because you have an in-house tool which
Exactly.
which tells you whether you've been hustling hard enough or not. I'm sure if people have been able to focus on this conversation in the last hour or so, they will get a lot of pearls of wisdom from the experience that both of you have shared. So thank you very much for that. And what we will also be doing is we will be culling out some of the nuggets from this conversation and publishing it in a post on our website from theexpertsmouth.com. Plus the other videos from this series Unleash with FTEM are also available in a playlist. The link will be down in the description below and in the comment section. And along with that, we'll also have a link to the Flowace website. And with that, Tarun and Varun, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
so
much.
much for having us. It's really been a pleasure.
Yeah, it's a pleasure is all ours. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank